Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, your recovery-focused podcast with your host, Keegan. Today, we're joined by Amy Lenius. I've already screwed it up. uh, we're joined by Amy, the director of group coaching at Next Level University and a powerhouse speaker who has graced over 175 podcasts. Amy has spent years rebuilding her health, her identity, and her self-worth from the ground up after battling chronic illness. She's here to move us past the performative version of self-help and into the aligned version of reality. So, Amy, I know we spoke a little bit on the before call about how you're actually kind of dealing with something kind of like that again, but can you give us a little bit of background? Like, what was it that you dealt with, and how was handling your identity after battling chronic illness? Because, I mean, that just rocks the whole world, right?
It does, and I actually do believe it shaped my whole identity. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Keegan, for having me. It's nice to reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, yeah, I'm dealing with another bit of something, but it's more of a knee injury, something more structural than what I dealt with before. So, like you said, I have a past of chronic illness. I grew up with a condition called endometriosis, and that's a very female hormone-driven condition, very inflammatory, messes with not only your cycle but so much more. It causes a lot of grief and a lot of different symptoms in different women depending on the severity of it, and
Mm-hmm.
to the extreme of infertility and all sorts of things. And so I got diagnosed with that in my late teens, but dealt with it for years beforehand, because it's very hard to get a diagnosis for these kinds of things for women, because you go to the doctor and they say, oh, well, you're just a woman, this is welcome to becoming a woman, this is just normal female problems. Another
Yep.
guy told me one time, I was like, wow, thank you, okay. And so dealing with that for years, and then finally getting a diagnosis, and then having someone say, okay, this is actually your life now, there's not much we can do for you, we can give you all of these different pain medications, all of these different hormone interventions, and see what happens, and or we can give you a hysterectomy and hope that that works. And I was like 19, I would really love to try and have children.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see what we can do outside of that. So from, then the diagnosis to a few years later, it was a lot of different medications, a few surgeries so they can go in and treat it, but it always comes back. So they can go in and take out the excess cells that grow. It's basically an uncancerous cancer. Cells go and grow and proliferate outside of where they're supposed to, and just create a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can go in, take out all that extracellular growth. And so I had surgeries and medications and all sorts of things. And then in my early 20s, I was like, I feel like crap. I don't feel good. I'm still dealing with all of the pain I dealt with before, but now I think I'm having a lot of side effects from all the different medications and all the different painkillers and things that I'm on. So what if I just started from scratch? What if I
Mm-hmm.
just went off of everything and just see what happens? So I did that safely and with a lot of curiosity, and realized that, oh, like I'm still dealing with the same amount of pain with or without these drugs. The pain I can deal with. I've lived with this for years. Like, let's just see what happens if I can get a little healthier outside of my condition and see if that makes a difference. And I was in this mindset and building this new identity alongside this at the time, because I myself was in school for anatomy and physiology. So I
Mm-hmm.
was learning so much about the human body, and I think it just gave me a little bit of a confidence boost of, okay, well, what if I just start from scratch and really see what's happening based on these new awarenesses that I have?
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of started that first moment of, you know what, I'm not going to be a passenger of this scenario and just let others drive for me. I'm actually going to take some responsibility and some empowered choice in my health here. And I think that comes with, maturity, going from a teenager into young adulthood. I think that mattered. I think my education mattered. And I think just the being fed up. I was very tired of feeling like crap. And so that's what I did. And I had, he was my live in boyfriend at the time, now husband. I had his full support because I went off of literally everything, including birth control and all of the things, so we could just see what was going on. And I started to even just feel a little bit better as I dove into curiosity and different kinds of practices. I went to physio, acupuncture. I let the other students at my school kind of experiment on me with their little practices and for their case studies and things. And I just started to notice little bits of feeling better. And that was the start of it for me, to just dive into curiosity, to take what could feel like the next most aligned step. And over years and years and years, and we can dive into the details if you'd like, but I feel like I've been talking for a while here. But over years of different choices, compounding effects, and asking for help and aligning with people I actually agreed with versus just listening to whatever anyone else had to say because they were supposed to be smarter than me with their degrees and doctorates and things, I got healthy and I became better and I had two beautiful children and I lived the life that I live now, being told that I would never be healthy and never be away from this chronic illness. But that is because I did a lot of unsexy fundamentals over, a good decade, and I still practice a lot of those things now to keep myself healthy.
Ah, okay, that's awesome. I'm terribly sorry to hear about the endometriosis because, uh, like, my wife actually got diagnosed with that not too long ago, and so that was, well, I don't even know if it was a full-on diagnosis, but I think it was because she had woken up one day and with a terrible amount of pain, and she was like, "This is not normal." Kind of thing. And so we took her to the ER. They did scans and they were like, everything's fine, basically. And she was like, no, it's not. And so thankfully, I was like, no, we're going to advocate for you until, like, hey, we've got to figure something out. Because they try to, like I said, do the same thing. Just say, oh, this is normal. You're just a woman, kind of thing. And it's like, no, she knows her body and this isn't normal. So what's going on? And so she's had to do a lot of different stuff, but it really rocked her world because it essentially had to reshape her identity as well. So it's also interesting because I believe March is Endometriosis Awareness Month, which is really cool. So, and I think the U.S. has actually labeled endometriosis as a disability of sorts now. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, so not sure entirely how all that's playing out, but I think that they passed something for that. So it's being more recognized, and it's awesome that you're able to sit here and help people kind of figure their way out through that, but not just that, but how to rebuild identity after getting your snow globe shaken so much. So
Yeah.
what were some of the unsexy fundamentals that you were talking about? Because whenever we're talking about healing and stuff, a lot of people like to do the surface level and just kind of ignore a lot of other stuff that's the hard work. And healing is not supposed to be easy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge what you said. I'm so sorry about your wife and what she's going through, but I'm also so proud of you guys for being that advocate because I think that's one of the fundamental things that I tell women all the time is you know your body best and you know what's normal and what isn't. And you need to
Hmm.
fight for when something isn't normal in your body. And yes, maybe people have better anatomy and physiology terms. And yes, they have more knowledge in these areas than you, but they don't know you better than you do. And so, even just to be able to stand in advocacy of, you know what, this isn't normal, this isn't my regular cycle, this isn't my regular anything, and I need help. And sometimes you have to fight and go through multiple people until someone is willing to help you. So it was just amazing. And I'm sorry for her, but like you said, there seems to be a bit more movement because 1 in 6 is the stats right now in Canada
Yeesh.
and US. 1 in 6 women deal with some sort of hormonal dysfunction condition, whether it be PCOS, endometriosis, infertility. And that's a lot. One in
Hmm.
six is a lot. And there's so many reasons around that, but I fell in love, I'll tell you this, I fell in love with the word holistic on my healing journey because it is about everything. And I
Hmm.
know that that sounds really overwhelming, but the fact that if you can embody and embrace and accept that everything affects everything else in your life, you're actually going to do a lot better, not only in health journeys, but in your relationships, in your wealth and careers and things as well. Everything affects everything else. And when we keep things separate, we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And that's what my diagnosis and treatment was for a really long time. It was just this very separate small box. Okay, your uterus isn't functioning properly, basically. So let's just focus on that. Let's not assess the rest of your internal environment, which functions like a community. It's not separate. It
Hmm.
took me a long time and a really amazing naturopathic doctor to work with me and say, you know what, it's about so much more than that. It's about your gut health, it's about your liver function, it's about your stress, it's about your sleep. And so when we started incorporating healing within all of that and paying attention to all of that, I started to feel better. And then to take it even deeper, I started to pay attention to my external environment That was a huge one too. Started detoxing my home from things called endocrine disruptors that really affect your hormones. And if you're healing your hormones from the inside, but yet the outside is still burdening your insides, you can only get so far.
Mm-hmm.
You're it's a complex relationship. It's a symbiotic relationship, whether it's functioning well or not, between your insides and your outsides. And
Mm.
they all affect each other. When you're feeling like crap inside, it absolutely reflects and has external effects. And if you are surrounded by persons, places, things that affect your hormones or whatever it is you're working on specifically in your own life, if you're surrounding yourself with those things that misalign with your goals internally, you're not going to find the full success. And so
Mm.
embracing this holistic ideology was actually one of the first things that really changed my life. And again, that was embodied over time. But now that I can look back, that was a huge through line of everything that I did.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, and thank you for highlighting that the internal and external work together like that, and that the human body is a giant community because we're really just a whole bunch of weird cells that somehow work together. And it's amazingly complex, and yet we don't necessarily look at it as the whole. Kind of like you were saying, a lot of the times if we have an issue, it's like, let's just look at this one thing and fix that, whenever it could be something else. So, real quick, you said endocrine disruptors being something in the external environment. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, especially as women, because we typically have more complex beauty routines and product routines and things. Again, a little bit of a generalization there, but on average, we do. And all of our products, even like beauty, self care, skincare, but then there's even, you can go as far as clothes, furniture, cooking but I don't like to overwhelm people. But just to know what an endocrine disruptor is an ingredient that has a million faces and a million forms, but it's an ingredient that is hidden under certain headings like the word fragrance, let's say.
Mm.
If you see the word fragrance on something, that is allowed to embody, it could be a million different ingredients that could be in there, but they don't have to tell you what it is because it's hidden under the trade secret word of fragrance. And
Mm.
in there typically are so many endocrine disruptors. And what those are external chemicals and toxins that go into your body and function like a hormone,
Mm.
and they disrupt the whole cycle. So what happens is, let's say I put some lotion on my skin and it seeps in, because as much as our skin is our protective organ, it's also our most absorbent. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
your skin is an organ and it absorbs things into your body. It's supposed to. And so that goes into my body, and now I have this cell and it looks like estrogen, let's say. And in my body, I have all of these circulating little cells that send out signals of, hey, I would be a more balanced, happy cell if I could combine with estrogen. And so it sends a signal up, your body gets the signal, it goes on through this amazing neurological process, and then your body produces the estrogen, and the estrogen comes in, it binds to this cell, and now you have this happy little cell that's combined with its thing in its own version of homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you have a happy cell, and then that's functioning. That's happening millions and millions of times over in your body in all sorts of different processes, but we're using estrogen as an example. Now, this cell, go back to the beginning, still wants to combine with estrogen. It sends out the signal, but now I had lotion on today and it had those endocrine disrupting chemicals in them, those EDCs, and it comes in and it says, "Oh, I fit here." And your cell's like, "Oh, you do fit here. You must be estrogen." And that happens over and over and over and over again. And then the cells stop sending the signal to produce the estrogen, and it just turns into this crazy feedback loop in your body that disrupts your whole hormonal cycle.
Mm.
It's just
Huh.
like a very macro look at it, but that, if you can kind of digest that as something that is happening over and over and over again in your body, just based on things you're using in your external environment that come in and mimic the hormones and the natural things that go into your body, or are a part of your body,
Mm.
and just disrupts your version of homeostasis. So homeostasis is your individual version of balance, how your body feels balanced,
Mm-hmm.
and it disrupts that. And there's
Huh.
so many things doing that, but an endocrine disruptor is a really good example of that.
Okay. Thank you for that breakdown. And it makes me think of BPA, like in plastic and water bottles and
Exactly.
stuff.
That's one.
Because I know whenever I was doing custom harvesting and stuff like that, I was, or not rather when I was, but I heard about whenever the ex-wife or family was, they had to stop leaving the packs of water bottles out in the sun because the BPA would leak into the water, and then the guys would get really, really moody. And because if I'm not mistaken, BPA is like mimicry estrogen, and so it would just disrupt the guy's hormonal flow essentially and make them act out in ways that they normally wouldn't. And I just find it funny because it's one of those things that, like you said, we never would think about that kind of stuff until we do a little bit of deep digging and stuff like that. And it's good that we have this kind of knowledge now, but it's kind of sucky that a lot of people will sit there and hide it behind fragrance or something else like that. So, whenever you had to find your homeostasis again, it also sounds like the way like alcohol addiction will kind of work. It'll make your body stop producing that dopamine and so on and so forth because it's like, hey, we don't need it. We get it from this other source, so we don't need to make it, you know? And it's like, hey, yeah, and it sucks. And so, did you have like a withdrawal period of sorts where you kind of felt out of balance because you stopped having the endocrine disruptors in there?
Yeah, I think that's true of all healing. You have these highs and lows that happen, and sometimes the lows are a part of it. And so we have to fight really hard to get through those lows on journeys like this. And I think the misconception, even if you take it as macros, even just personal development, let's say, there are lows on that journey and they're a part of it. But we see all the time, oh, it's easy breezy. You learn about yourself, it's momentum, it's fun, it's sunshine, rainbows, off you go. And people think on these journeys, well, I must be doing something wrong, or it's not working for me, or because I'm having a down day, or I'm having a low moment, or my symptoms seem to be coming back, when in reality, it's just because they're fighting to stay. It's all a part of any kind of expansive growth healing journey are the highs and lows. And so, and because our body is so complex and it's doing things that we can't superficially and subjectively understand yet. And we need to give it time. And so I think that's another thing that people don't do in any kind of healing journey is we don't give it enough time because we think it should work quickly because we see on social media, oh, this person changed their life in a week. No, probably not.
Hmm.
And I think that's where I get a little miffed sometimes when someone's like, "Yeah, but like what's the one thing? What's the one thing you did that changed your entire life in one thing?" It's like, "No, it was a bunch of unsexy fundamentals over a decade, but it was
Hmm.
absolutely worth it." And all of the things that built upon each other and compounded on each other and led me to the next step is what made the difference. And so, even if this episode you take away from today, listener, is just endocrine disruptors, you start assessing the things that are in your environment that could be contributing to you being sick or unhealthy or your mood. It affects your mood so much, like you said, because those balances in our bodies are so specific
Hmm.
and they're so like those are so sensitive to external disruptions that you can notice it pretty quickly, especially if you're paying attention to it. I can tell now because I've been paying attention to my hormones for so long through trauma, but I can tell when something is off. And I
Hmm.
know that okay, I'm feeling this. Okay, let's have this tea today. Let's have this. Let's have this. Like you get so in tune with it, but it takes time. And yeah, there are these moments of detox and things, but what's amazing is once your body detoxes from synthetic fragrance and synthetic ingredients in laundry soaps, let's say, all of a sudden what used to smell good to you smells synthetic and it smells bad and your skin reacts to it
Hmm.
as it should.
Hmm.
Your body starts responding to these things as it should, but unfortunately we're exposed to them right from like in utero, not even from when we're born on. We're exposed to all of these things in utero. You can take women's placenta and the umbilical cord and do these tests and see that there's endocrine disruptors and plastics and things right from utero. It's just
Hmm.
so sad and so unfortunate and almost unavoidable these days, really. And you're exposed from it right from the beginning, so you build up a tolerance to it.
Hmm.
You build up a tolerance to it so you don't respond to these toxins as your body would had they never been exposed to them. So once you start taking them out, you actually start to see the difference. Like laundry soap smells terrible to me now, right? Like you go through that laundry aisle in the grocery store, I can't even walk past it without being like, "Oh my gosh." Whereas initially in my youth, I was like, "Oh my, look at smell this soap. Oh, sandalwood hibiscus fun time. Like, and now I can't even go within 6 feet of it because you can tell the difference. I have a funny story that made my kid so weird in school, the 1 year of school that he did, because we homeschool now. But I used to send soap with him to school. He had his own soap because by the time he was going to school, we used all natural products in our home. So I knew him going to school and using that really harsh soap on his hands wouldn't be good for him.
Mm.
And so he would take his own soap pump. I was that mom. And he came home one day and his hands were slightly irritated. I was like, "Oh, what were you guys playing with today?" Maybe it was some sort of Play-Doh or someone brought something in, and it kept getting worse and worse. And finally, I was like, "Buddy, like, are you using your soap?" He's like, "Oh, I ran out of soap." And he's 4 or 5 years old. He's not paying attention to the soap, but he had ran out of his soap, and his skin was reacting as it should to the harsh synthetic soaps at the school. And that was just
Wow.
a really, really amazing window and experience and reminder of like, oh yeah, this really does make a difference, the things that we're doing. And I am going to keep sending weird shit to school with him, but it's fine. And we ended up homeschooling him after that anyways, but it really does make a difference. And the small things, it sounds like it's going to take a lot to detox your whole home and things, but the small things make a difference. Switching out your hand soap to start makes a difference. And then
Mm.
maybe when your shampoo runs out, maybe that's the next one to go. As much as I would love to say, yep, throw out everything and spend thousands of dollars on revamping your whole home, that's not realistic for
Mm-mm.
most of us. And so the small things matter and small things compound over time. And if you start switching out little things, little routines that you have, makeups, loose leaf tea for the bag tea that maybe you used to get, anything, all of these little things make a huge difference and allows your body to just have a breath to be able to actually heal. Our bodies are so powerful in self healing, but it needs the capacity to be able to do it. And if your liver and all things are so bogged down with things all the time, it struggles to heal.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get pregnant with our first son just from me going off of all of the drugs, all of the things, and getting some natural support through acupuncture and things. Like, we got pregnant way earlier than we expected. I think 17 weeks at our wedding.
Oh, wow.
And it was
Huh.
a huge part of like the celebration because we were told we might never even have kids. I had a procedure booked. We got married in June. I had a procedure booked for August where they go in and they clean out all the cells again. So a surgery so that hopefully with a fresh uterus, basically, I could get pregnant after that. But I never ended up needing that procedure. And
Uh,
so that right there was a huge win to say, okay, I'm on the right path. I need to stop bogging my body down with the wrong things and keep supporting it with the right things. So after my first son was born, the journey just kept progressing.
mm. Okay. Wow. That's powerful. And it's interesting that you brought up the laundry soap kind of stuff because whenever the wife and I started doing laundry and stuff here, like she had to get fragrance free stuff because she's allergic to the fragrances. And so I'm kind of curious, like, how much of that was maybe playing a part in her early life and stuff like that. But you also mentioned the whole plastic aspect. And I think it's like we breathe about a credit card's worth of plastic a year now, like because it's just in our bodies, in the air. And I also read something recently that said all the prostate cancer, like there's a whole bunch of microplastic in male prostates now, and it's like, wow, how is that getting there? And it's just because our body latches onto it and deposits it wherever it feels like it needs to go for some weird reason, kind of like lead. And oh, I forget what lead is. It mimics or fits in with calcium, I think, so it gets into your bones. So, yeah, it's a weird, wild ride that the humans have created for ourselves, and it seems that the harsh reality is that with all this fast production and the industrial revolution, rather, it's like we're trying to make everything or replicate natural stuff whenever really we just have to find a symbiotic relationship with the natural world so that we can actually be in homeostasis more often. But it's like people up above that make the money don't want us to have that because one reason or another, and they can call me a conspiracist, but it's because of the control aspect. You keep a population unhealthy, then you get to keep them healthy by selling them other fast fixes like the pills and stuff. And a lot of people think that pills are what heal, but really they're just a band-aid covering up other symptoms, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so one of the things that I've really got to say though is that your identity had to shift. Oh, and I also want to say congratulations on the pregnancy and stuff because that is a huge thing. You know, Jordy, the wife, she's been sitting there and she talked about like possibly getting a surgery that they would go and scrape everything out, but even then, it's not a guarantee. Even getting a hysterectomy isn't a guarantee, and she was saying that there's different stages of it and it can even get up into like your shoulders and stuff, and I was like, wow, like this is a bigger thing than I thought, because in my like original understanding of it was that it's only down there kind of stuff, but nope, it's the whole body, and that's scary as hell. So your identity, was it more or less that you found your identity in healing, and was it like, how did you kill off the part of you that thought that that wasn't possible?
Mm. I actually, there's a part of me, and I actually, this is probably the first time I'm ever saying this on a podcast because this is a new realization for me. There's a part of me that is super grateful that I didn't have the access to information that people do now.
Oh.
And I know that that sounds terrible because the reason I know all the things I know now is because of collecting information and learning, but I didn't have this outside, more outside person, like influence is the word there, influence of victim mindset
Okay.
right now. So when I like later on in years, I saw that there was these support groups and Facebook groups for endometriosis and all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful thing that women have nowadays. Because me, I'm 38 now, so 39 in a couple months. So I'm looking at, I've been dealing with this for over 20 years.
Eesh.
Longer.
Yeah.
I've had a diagnosis for 20 years, let's say. And so
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago compared to the information now, like I wasn't even, I don't know if I was on Facebook then. I was very late to Facebook and things. It was never my thing. But when I discovered these groups, let's say now 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I go in there and there is rarely hope. There's rarely positivity. It is
Hmm.
more yes, you see the camaraderie and the validation, but there's no, if you post anything positive in those groups, you get ripped apart.
Wow.
You get ripped apart because people fight so hard for their victim mindset, and I know that's going to trigger a lot of people and that's really hard to hear, but you do so much, especially if you have a whole collection of people fighting that battle with you and fighting to stay in it. There's very few people in those groups fighting hard to do something different
Hmm.
rather than be in this state of mind. And I know it looks like they're doing things, but they are not open to suggestion.
Hmm.
I have seen people get ripped apart in the comments for putting something positive in that helped them. And it's wild to see when
Huh.
we need to have humility in knowing that not everything works for everybody else. That's totally true and that's okay. Not
Hmm.
all the things that worked for me aren't going to work for you and vice versa, but there's so much lessons within all of it. There's so much like, okay, this specific thing didn't work, but it doesn't mean there aren't 100 other things that you can keep trying or 100 other practitioners and different doctors and different modalities that you can go to, but people don't even try. What
Hmm.
happens in victim mindhood is you have low self-belief and low self-worth. And
Hmm.
low self belief means I actually can't do anything about this, so I'm going to just stay here because I am stuck this way. Low self worth says I actually don't even feel worthy enough of being healthy. Now, that's a
Hmm.
lot of subconscious and unconscious stuff. No one consciously says, I don't want to be healthy and I don't want to feel better. But there's a lot of identity. You keep bringing back the identity. There's a lot of identity work that needs to go along with this kind of healing, especially now with so much external influence. And if you think you're not being influenced by your external environment and the people around you or groups like that, it's just naive. It's so naive because the subconscious and unconscious mind are 200 million or something crazy times more powerful than our conscious mind.
Hmm.
And so these things are really, really important. And so I I think I created a lot of self-belief through my journey because I had to just go and figure it out
Hmm.
and go find the next thing and be like, okay, that thing didn't work. It didn't work as well as I thought. I'm going to go on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And that's what creates self-belief is trial and error going and continuing to take action. But I'm so grateful that I also didn't have that external influence. It was hard enough battling with the doctors, let alone society.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I do think there's a duality there, because right now society is more accepting and understanding of women's cyclical nature. We're only now doing studies on women as opposed to just doing them on men and assuming women are small men. They would do all the studies on men and be like, "Oh, just give women a smaller dose because they're just smaller men." We are so fundamentally and biologically different. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It matters so much. All women are run by their cyclical nature, and the second we ignore that, we're doing ourselves such a disservice. We really are. And so, I mean, I'm rambling now. We're taking this all over the place, but there's just so much I could talk about on this topic. I'm sure you can tell. But the identity that had to come in, and thankfully wasn't tainted so much from these other struggles, was, I just have to figure this out. And even if I can get a little bit better, I actually didn't believe I could get healthy.
Mm.
It took me a long time to believe that I could get fully healthy, but I believed I could get 1% better. Here's this next thing I did. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little bit better. Oh, I've implemented, I've stopped taking all of these pain medications, and I've started implementing natural anti inflammatory remedies. And then one day I reached into the bottom of my purse and found an ibuprofen bottle that I hadn't reached for in forever. And it was like, oh, and it was a big win for me to go from the prescription pain meds down just to an ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
And then to go from an ibuprofen to, oh, I haven't even reached for this bottle in a long time. Small
Yeah.
compounding wins.
Yeah. Yeah, those small compounding wins are what build success essentially. And I mean, it's crazy that in those kind of support groups, if you post hope, then they're just going to be like, "Nope, get the hell out of here," or just trash you, which is it's so weird that a society is essentially addicted to pain, that
Yes.
they just want to stick in the victim mindset for one reason or another. And I part of me thinks that it's because the victim mindset, they get people's sympathy and or empathy and just be like, oh, it's okay, blah 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 blah. Because I know I was in that state of mind for a good while whenever I was in my addiction. It was like, oh, boohoo, poor me, blah 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 blah. But the thing was is that I didn't even know that there was a way out, and what I didn't know what I would look like on the other side of things. I was afraid that who I was essentially going to die off, which in a sense did happen, but in the same light, the person that came out of all of that is a totally different person. Like looking back at pictures, it's like I can't even recognize me in a sense. Like I know it's me, but at the same time it's like but it's not me now. And that's the weird part. And I think a lot of people want to stay in their who they are because change is scary, change is hard. And like you said before, there's those highs and those lows, and the low part really makes me think of like the Five of Cups in tarot, because it's all about like having this bad grief that you just like need to let out. And if you bottle it up and if you don't express those negative emotions, quote unquote negative, then you're just going to create more sorrow for yourself. And it really is just one of those where like in today's world we do have it to where it's like if you show bad emotions or whatever, then you don't deserve the good emotions for whatever weird reason, or you're weak, or so on and so forth. And it's actually quite the opposite. I think vulnerability is being able to sit there and say, I'm willing to hurt to heal, instead of everything hurts me, you know? And it sounds like that was something that you kind of took upon yourself, was being vulnerable to hurt to heal. And whether because you had to do trial and error on a lot of these things, you couldn't sit there and be like, oh yeah, this is totally going to work 100%. And even for those moments, I'm sure that you did kind of think that whenever it didn't really work out the way you wanted to, there was a bit of like that oof, like maybe that like disappointment. And that's a hard emotion to walk through, because I spoke to someone and they were saying that disappointment is the one thing that'll stop people dead in their tracks because something didn't go right. And so it's like, well, why even bother with trying something else? So was it just because you were so determined to get feeling better that whenever disappointment hit, you were like, all right, well, take notes and discard that and move on to this next thing? Or was it something else?
Yeah, disappointment's a hard one because people will do whatever they can to avoid it. You get disappointed a couple times and it is so easy to throw in the cards. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of reasons around that. It depends on your relationship with like guilt versus shame even. Is it your fault or did you just do a bad thing or is it someone else's fault? Now we're bringing in like that villain mindset. It's not my problem, it's someone else's fault. It's someone else's fault that I'm being suppressed this way or not healing or things. And there's so much that goes into that. The layer when you're talking, the layers of belief came up for me,
Mm.
and I think that's a really powerful tool for people to understand, and something that I unconsciously was doing at the time. Again, hindsight's always 2020. I can lay down now exactly where when high self-belief took me through or when I had to show self-worth or just push through with consistency based on just so many things. But again, that's all hindsight.
Mm.
But the disappointment aspect of it brought me to layers of belief, and we're always battling with these layers in our minds of, is it possible, is it possible for me, and is it going to be worth it?
Mm.
So even after so much of my healing and so many wins and years of you know, not a straight trend line of success, but compounding success over time to where I ended up on stages talking about women's health, talking about holistic women's health. That was my keynote. My favorite keynote that I got to give was holistic healing for your hormones. You could see that it you could see that women were feeling so seen. You could see that all of this stuff was landing, but yet there was a disconnect still.
Mm.
And so what I was doing was I was showing them something that was possible. I wasn't hitting the layer of, is it possible for you, within them, because there's things that I can ask someone where I say, okay, well, do you believe it's possible? Do you believe it's possible for people to exercise every day? That's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, do you believe it's possible for you? Oh no, this reason, this reason, right? And I'm one of them. I used to be that kind of person for sure. It's with specific things. Again, things we have low self-belief in.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't addressing their level of belief. And so now that I can look back, I can see where I was not communicating to a level that I could have to these women. I was giving them hope and inspiration and things, but not addressing, is it possible for you?
Mm.
Because people can see, okay, it's possible. Even in those groups, let's say, okay, well, that's nice for you. That something worked for you, but that's not going to work for me because I have this stage and I've dealt with this and I've already tried this. And so they don't believe it's possible for them.
Mm.
And so that belief needs to heal first.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was possible because I didn't have all of this access to information and things that people do now. But what I did know, it was possible for me to keep going and doing something and get a little bit better and get a little bit better. And then I built that into belief that it could be possible.
Mm.
But what I did know, the third deepest layer is it going to be worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Is it possible for me? Will it be worth it? That's another layer that people struggle with because they'll consciously say, yeah, of course it's going to be worth it to do whatever it takes to feel better. But when they say whatever it takes, I don't think they know what that means
Mm.
until they're really in it. And it
Mm-hmm.
is worth it. Like we talked about those hard days, those low days. That's when that worth it factor comes in. This is a part of the process. And even though it sucks today, it's going to be worth it to push through again tomorrow in whatever
Mm.
way that looks like. And so is it possible? Is
Mm.
it possible for you? You have to ask yourself this question, is it possible for me? And is it going to be worth it? And that's why I always say constantly, yes, it was a decade, but it was worth it. It was worth that time. That time's going to pass anyways, statistically. We never really know when our time is coming, but statistically, you have another decade here for sure. And what can you do with that time? It's going to pass anyways. Make little steps, trial and error, get curious, go try different things. If it doesn't work, you're no worse off.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the disappointment, I didn't fall into disappointment too much, is because I had hit the lowest of disappointment. When I was in high school and they asked you on career day what you wanted to do with your life, I always wrote mom first.
Mm.
And then they'd give you shit because that's not a real career,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you'd go write something else down. But I always said mom. And so when I was told I would probably never be able to have children, I went through a very dark and low time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was the most depressing moment for me.
Yeah.
When I started seeing wins, or when I had disappointing days, it was like, oh, but it's not that disappointing. I
Mm-hmm.
can do this. I can do this level of disappointment. It's not as disappointing as being in pain, crippling things, and not thinking I could have children every day. That's disappointing. I can handle whatever this level of disappointment is. And I think that's a little bit of martyrdom, a little bit of a masochist there. But I think if it works, right? We all have our own way of dealing with things. And if you can compare to, okay, well, I've actually been in a worse situation than this and I made it on the other side.
Mm,
I can deal with this. Not to dismiss it. You always still want to sit in, okay, this sucks for right now.
mm,
I always call it having a pity party. You can absolutely have a pity party. Do it, but
mm,
don't live there. The victim lives there.
mm,
You can have a moment. You can visit. It's super valid to be disappointed and frustrated and sad, but don't live there.
yeah.
Find the tools you need to use to get yourself out, to take whatever that next step is so that you keep moving forward, so that you keep building belief in yourself and in the possibilities of whatever it is you're working towards. Action creates belief in your mind.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to be perfect action. It doesn't have to be even the right action. It can just be the action towards something, and then you learn that's not it, and then you try something else. But action's really, really important. And the victim and the villain mindset, those either it's all me, I can't do anything about it, or it's others that are suppressing me. They never take action, and they don't
mm,
build themselves out of that.
yeah. Oof. Action is one of those big things that I think is hard for a lot of people. And
It is.
it's crazy that you brought up the pity party aspect because for some reason my brain was like, hey, Alice in Wonderland, Mad Hatter Tea Party, change places. And so it's like, no, we don't want to live in that like pity party seat, but we do want to at least sit there every now and then because we do have a right to feel sorry for ourselves because life is hard. Life does suck sometimes. And if we try to go with that toxic positivity mindset or the super positivity mindset where it's like everything's awesome all the time, no matter what, I'm going to be grateful for everything and all that. It's like, no, it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be angry because your job sucks. It's okay to be pissed off at your coworkers. It's okay to feel disappointed because you didn't hit the milestone that you thought you were going to hit whenever you were 25 or so on and so forth. Like it's okay to feel that, but to live in that is to perpetuate that victim mindset. And again, people, I think whenever you might point out that they're having a victim mindset, they get offended because that's their identity, and
Yeah.
they're going to be much more reluctant to kind of hear anything that gets them out of that, or maybe see outside of that perspective. So, real quick, you are a group coach. So, where can people find you for this kind of group coaching?
Oh, I mean, for this kind of like identity work and coaching, I would say one on one for
Okay.
sure. That's, but even if anything we talked about today, if you just have questions or if you want to vent about your endometriosis or hormonal struggles or not being seen in the medical system, like my DMs are always open, Instagram or Facebook, it's just at Amy Lenius. And I'm so there for those kinds of conversations. And you're not getting an assistant, you're not getting AI, you get me in those DMs. And I'm happy to hear anything that you just feel you want to share or would like more information on. But one on one coaching for sure. I now I mean you know this, I work with a company now called Next Level University, which seems like a far jump from the hormonal stuff and the women's work I was doing before this, because now I partner with a couple of bros who are dedicated to self-improvement and holistic success. But that's why I fell in love with them, is because they talked about success from a holistic standpoint. It's about your health. It's
Mm-hmm.
about your wealth. It's about your quality of life. It's about the love in your life and how they all affect one another. And so I fell into their community very quickly and fell in love with everything they had to do until they invited me in and said, hey, come speak with us, come MC, come run our live events. And then it was like, hey, come coach with us. Hey, come be a face of this company. We love everything that you're doing. It was just this crazy expansion. And that's what it was. It wasn't an abandonment of, okay, women's support and women's health. I was so supported and celebrated to bring all of the work that I had done previously into this space. And now I feel like I just get to offer more around holistic success and fulfillment and having that be a piece of it, but not the whole piece of the puzzle. Like we said earlier, holistic is about everything affecting everything else. And your health is a huge piece of that. So group coaching is actually our podcast accelerator. It's targeted for podcasters right now who are dedicated to growing themselves first. We always work on identity first. Any journey you want to go on is identity first. So the first 4 weeks, as you know, is grow yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's grow your podcast, and then it's grow your business.
Yeah, and I gotta say thanks for taking part of that because that was an awesome class, and I think it's well worth it for anyone that wants to go. And yeah, and real quick, is it the next? Is it this link right here? Nextleveluniverse.com/group coaching. Awesome.
It is.
Sweet. And I mean, it's crazy to think that it's so there's so many different aspects in life that compound and work on each other, and at the same time, we can only really work on one or two at a moment because we only have so many hours in a day. We can only do so much in a day, and I know I'm one of those people that's like, why do I only have 24 hours and I can only really do 18 hours of like being awake? You know, it's like there's got to be something out there, but it's because I'm always sitting there, and one of my wounds is trying to be productive to prove my worthiness to either myself and or the people around me, and it sucks because it's one of those things that will keep me in like ghost mode essentially. Like I'll isolate very quickly because I'm trying to do stuff, and sometimes that stuff is not meaningless per se, but it could definitely be that energy could be directed elsewhere, like my spiritual life, and that definitely has a big impact in the way that my recovery works, because without it then my recovery would just really fall to pieces really fast. And it's weird because that's one of the things that a lot of people will kind of push off to the side is their spiritual or mental health, you know, because in today's world, if you're not productive, you're not worth a damn. And like we have to be able to recognize and honor ourselves to be able to sit there and say, I'm going to take a step back and rest, and maybe that can be productive. Because if we're not resting proper, then our bodies can't heal proper, and our minds are part of our body. And so we have to really understand that there's more to doing anything than just doing anything also. So did you learn how to also kind of take a step towards the sideline for a little bit to like not hit pause on your life, but to just say, I need a breather for a minute?
Yes, have to. Absolutely have to. Especially if you're dealing with a chronic inflammation disorder, right? Anything can cue like kick off your inflammation, and then you're down for days and days and days and days. And it
Mm,
sucks, especially for someone who loves to be productive and growth oriented and things like you described. And so there's a great book. It's called Peak Performance. And he opens the book with, you cannot grow without stress and rest.
mm,
You need both. If you're doing too much stress, you're going to burn out. You're not getting enough rest. If you do too much rest, you're not going to grow because you're not doing enough stress.
mm,
And stress can be used as a good thing, right? There's good stress and bad stress. There's productive stress and very disruptive stress, right? We need to know what those disruptions are and what is positive for us and aligned with our goals versus what isn't. And it's like building muscles. When you're
mm,
working out, you're causing stress on your muscles for the sake of growth, but you have to rest and recover those muscles for them to actually grow. Your brain is like that, your whole physical health is like that, your mental, emotional, spiritual health is like that. And what rest does also is it gives you time to integrate. So if
mm,
you're a chronic, I love to be productive and I love to learn, we typically struggle with action in an
mm,
aligned, focused way. We think we're being busy, we think we're being productive. In reality, we're not taking time to implement the things that we are learning and taking time to actually discern, okay, what is the actions that I'm doing? What are, like, what's moving the needle versus what's just keeping me busy and not actually moving the needle towards my goals? It's just keeping me busy. What am
mm,
I seeing as urgent and important and really isn't? And then I can put on the sideline. It takes a moment of rest and reflection to be able to even do that. And so, I mean, the through line here has been physical health and healing, but there's such a mental aspect to it, right? Like we talked about holistic. Your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual being are all coexisting. And spiritual, if you don't connect to anything that's, a stereotypical version of that, spiritual can be you, your highest self.
mm,
What do you visualize as your highest, most abundant, aligned, fulfilled self? Connect to that. That helps me a lot because I've rarely been able to connect with certain things that are considered traditionally spiritual. And so I
mm,
look at my highest self and say, what would the highest version of myself do? What would that person say to me? And
mm,
how can I build towards that version? And that
mm,
really helps if you're learning to expand in that way because we all strive in one. We all have mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. We all have them, but we have a code of which ones our strengths are. And S, spiritual is my last one. That's number 4 for me. That one I struggle with a lot, and so that has helped me. I'm very mental and emotional. Very mental and emotional. I'm constantly thinking, and I'm constantly in my emotions as well. Female driven is a huge part of that too. We're very emotional creatures. And so it's neat to know that about yourself, understand the syntax of what those are, and then which one needs a boost every now and then. Where are you mentally? How are you doing? How are your emotions doing? How are you doing physically? If you're struggling physically, it affects everything else. My knee right now is affecting my entire life. I'm still here, I'm still showing up, but I have to adjust.
Hmm.
And so having even just these very macro assessments of yourself is really, really important, because what happens if you can have actual humility and accurate self awareness in a moment, you can create acceptance. And once you have acceptance of, okay, I'm doing really well right now, I'm excelling, or acceptance of, I'm really struggling right now, or maybe I'm in a bit of a victim mindset right now, or maybe I am, you know, again, insert thing here, but if you can accept the accuracy of it, then you can take action that's actually going to make change. If you take action from a misaligned place of, oh no, I'm fine, you're actually really struggling, but you tell yourself you're fine, and then you try and build from that place of superficial fine, it's going to crumble beneath you. But if you can have self awareness and humility to have accurate self awareness in a moment and then accept what that is, accept, okay, I've been in a bit of a victim mindset lately. I understand why. It makes sense that I've been that way. But if I can accept that, I can actually take action out and I can get clear. I can get clear on what that is. And when you have clarity, you gain certainty. And when you have certainty, it's easier to create action. And then action creates momentum. And what's really beautiful is between certainty and action, or sorry, between action, no, the blend of certainty, action creates dopamine. We talked about dopamine earlier on. That dopamine helps you create action and momentum. So leverage that, leverage your dopamine for good things by getting clear, by having self-awareness, acceptance, clarity, certainty into action, get the dopamine boost, and that helps you create momentum in the right way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that breakdown. And yeah, it's weird how sometimes we can just ignore parts of ourselves because, kind of like you said,
It's
we're.
easier. It's a self-protective mechanism. We're actually wired to do that. Our
Hmm.
brain has a protective bias immune system, it's called. There's a more professional name for it, but it's like this immune system that actually keeps you protected and wired for things that can help you grow and can help you be in stress. But especially it protects you from a hard mirror. So when you say to someone, "Hey, you're in a bit of a victim mindset right now," even if you're trying to say it in a supportive way and they go, "Oh my, what?" and they attack back, that's their neurological immune system being like, "Don't look at that. Don't do that. That
Uh-huh.
hurts. Yuck, we don't like that." So you have to learn to negate that and navigate that and bypass it almost, because you are biologically set up to actually be like, "Hey, I don't like that. No."
Hmm.
So you have to be aware of that and fight against it for the greater good of you.
I mean, it can be really hard to get someone to that point, and I mean, especially for our own self, because
Mhm.
it is one of those things. Like in recovery, there's that saying, like, if you spot it, you got it. And so it's like if I see someone doing something and it pisses me off, it's like, well, why does that piss me off? It's because I am capable or am that person too, but it's that whole I like to think that that's not me because it's a different context kind of stuff. And it's like, no, underneath you're doing a lot of the same shit. What was it? There was something else that you said that I wanted to comment on. Oh, it was the integration part. Because like working on the podcast, for example, like I'm like, all right, got to go, post, and like record, edit. But then there's also the times where it's like, I've had to take that step back and just be like, okay, well, what is moving the needle and what isn't? And it's kind of hard whenever you're working on something that relies on external analytics per se, because like that's how the performance is based. But at the same time, I have to sit there and while I'm editing, that's my time to kind of reflect on how I'm doing as a host in the first place, or how I'm just conducting different portions of the interviews and stuff like that. But I think that we can all take that aspect of like, well, what am I doing? That reflection aspect to be able to integrate, like, well, what did work? What didn't work? How can I maybe tweak this to make it work next time if I want to keep going that route? Because just because something doesn't work right off the bat doesn't mean that it's not going to work ever either. And maybe it's just not the right time for that aspect of things, you know? And I think that that's kind of the hard part too, because a lot of us want the here and now to be better. And I think that the best thing that we can do is just acknowledge that we want to be better and that we're willing to do what it takes. But a lot of the time, whenever we figure out what that is, a lot of the time we'll back out of it really quick because it's like, yeah, never mind. I didn't think about that. No. and, uh,
Right.
yeah, and it's hard though. But whenever we make that commitment to ourselves, I think that that's what we need to hold on to a lot is that we're doing this for us, for our betterment, for our highest self, even, or whatever it may be that we're committing to getting better. And it can be hard whenever there's no self belief or self worth. And again, I've been down that road and I still struggle with some of that self worth and self belief because it's so ingrained in me that I wasn't worth it. I didn't believe anything was possible for me, that I couldn't go and do this, or I wasn't worthy of doing that because one thing or another in my past. And it all goes back to either childhood wounds or things that I decided to ignore growing up because I maybe had the clarity and awareness, but in my environment, it wasn't safe to do these things and express emotions and stuff like that. So it was like, whenever you find yourself in a box that you don't belong in, it gets uncomfortable really fast, and you'll find a way to make it comfortable. And that's how I fell into addiction. But we are nearing the end of this episode, Amy, and so I just gotta say thank you for being on. Do you think that we could see you on in the future at some point?
Oh, absolutely. I would be happy to discuss anything else moving forward. Like I said, I'm an open book, and if you're willing to have me back, we can dive into so much more about maybe some tangible things about what self-belief and self-worth look like in action. So
Hmm.
you can, build that for yourself and embrace progress over perfection and all of those little things, because it really makes a difference to start small. And if we can give you any kind of permission today, it is to do that, to start small. Take one thing maybe that spoke to you from this episode and see how you can implement it instead of trying to take on all of these big ideas that we've kind of danced around this whole episode. Is like, what can you take that is small and start there and allow it to build into something really sustainable, an identity building that is so foundational. You won't want to learn to build any other way moving forward. You want to, like, that's me now. I want to build so small all the time because I know it just lays such foundational bricks within me and expands my capacity to do more later. And that took a long time for me to embrace that mindset. But if I can instill that in anybody, it's to start small and that it is okay, if not better, to do so, so that you can continue to move forward and build your capacity along with it. But yeah, I would love to come back anytime. And I don't just say that to all the hosts. You've been a wonderful host, asking great questions and really guiding this conversation in an excellent way.
Well, thank you. I do have one last question. I didn't write it down, even though I should have, but maybe it'll just pop up in my brain. So, Amy, the name of this podcast is Retrieving Sanity, and we explore how all facets of living life impact our mental health. Looking back at your motley adventures, how would you personally describe retrieving sanity, and what's one belief or practice that you believe is crucial for anyone else on that journey?
Belief.
Belief.
Belief. It is. It has to be self belief. So, retrieving your sanity, I love that, by the way. I think that's so incredible. The more you can build belief in yourself and the action and the impact and the really empowered control that you do have over your life, regardless of what so many people, ideas, influence tells you, it's a really incredible thing because you start to take a hold of your life and a hold of your success and your health, and you start driving the bus, in an analogy, you start driving the bus in an empowered way rather
Mm.
than all of these things unconsciously driving you and you just reacting to it all the time like you have no say. You know, start building belief in yourself, belief in your capabilities, belief in change, and belief that the work that it's going to take to do so is going to be worth it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think that that is a great way to drive the bus because the bus is everyone of ourselves on the same ride with us, and our conscious mind is the driver, or should be, but the subconscious is usually the one plotting the route. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, uh, Amy, thank you for being on. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you got to try to love yourself first. Be your favorite version of yourself today if you can, and don't beat yourself up if you can't for whatever reason. But if you're having a mental health crisis, you can dial 988 or you can text 741-741. And if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, you can dial the Trevor Project up in Canada. And we will see y'all next time. And till then, much love. Sean. And stop.